on the American Family Radio Network. Our guest now is whom?
John R. Lott Jr. He is a well-known author. He's the author of the game-changing bestseller More Guns, Less Crime, and also Freedomnomics, Why the Free Market Works and Other Half-Baked Theories Don't. He's taught at the university or held positions at the University of Chicago, Yale, Stanford, UCLA, Rice, and the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Just published in the last month or so, brand new book from Regnery called At the Brink, Will Obama Push Us Over the Edge? John Lott, welcome to today's Issues.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Hey, John, let's just start right up front. Your book is called At the Brink, Will Obama Push Us Over the Edge? From where we sit today, how close are we to that edge?
Well, it depends on what issue. On some things like health care, I fear we're over the edge. And other issues on the economy and the huge debt that we're piling up, I think we're close. And similarly for things like people's ability to go and defend themselves with guns. On health care, you look at what's happened in the pharmaceutical industry. In the last 4 years, we've seen 50% cuts in the research staff, and Pfizer, 60% cuts in a place like Merck. I mean, these are meaning that drugs that would have been developed, that would have saved lives, that would have improved the quality of lives, not just in the United States, but around the world, because the vast majority of drugs developed over the last 30-some years have been in the United States, are not going to be developed. People's going to die sooner than they would have otherwise had to. And as I said, it's going to affect people around the world. You look at what's happened to insurance during the first 20 months of the Obamacare regulations with regard to insurance. We have seen the price for health insurance premiums go up by 20%. And we're just going to see, it's really going to get going next year when the health exchanges, the cheapest private insurance that you're going to be allowed to buy under the Obamacare health exchanges for an individual is $7,100, $7,100. The cheapest that you're going to be able to buy for a family of four starts a little bit above $20,000. Today, the average price for an individual policy is about $5,000, and the average price for a family of four is about $14,000. So you're going to go from $14,000 to $20,000, and I think within a couple of years, the private health insurance market's going to be destroyed because of some of the new regulations that are there that I can talk about. But there are other issues like, the economy. Right now, publicly held federal debt per family of four is about $200,000. It's basically doubled in the last 4 years, and we're still facing trillion-dollar deficits in the future. It's easy to see how this can quickly spin out of control if we keep on racking up these trillion-dollar deficits, because given the huge debt that we have, fortunately we have very low interest rates right now, but one of the reasons why they're low isn't for a good reason. It's because of the fact that people don't want to invest. If you just had the normal rate of interest, the interest rates would go up by about 3%, and that would be adding about $500 billion each year onto the federal deficit. So what's already a big deficit would become even more massive. And the problem that you face is that if lenders view us as getting riskier and the interest rate goes up because of that, then that increases the deficit, and that causes even higher interest rates, and you're kind of off to the races. And that's what we've seen happen recently in countries like Greece or Spain or others, where they have a bad debt problem, but when they become risky, when people realize that they're risky borrowers, what is originally a bad problem gets out of control. I think we can still solve that problem, unlike the health care, because we've just seen a small step in the right direction with the sequester. I mean, it's very small. We're talking about $44 billion cut out of a $3.8 trillion budget. But when we come up soon on the debt ceiling limit, I think we have a real opportunity to try to fix things. And the point of the book, point of writing At the Brink, was to go through a lot of the claims that the Obama administration is going to be making, such as they keep on saying, well, if you even slow the rate of government growth, the economy's not going to grow. And that's simply false. I mean, not only have we seen the failure here in the United States with the huge, massive budget deficits that we've had and big spending increases, but you look around the world, the countries that have followed Obama's policies and increased their deficits the most, increased their spending the most, they've had by far the worst growth rates for both income and for employment. And I think it's pretty easy to explain why that's the case. But if we're going to reverse these things, we need to start doing it now. Each year that you wait, it becomes much harder to go and try to solve these problems.
We're talking to John Lott, Jr. He's the author of At the Brink. Will Obama push us over the edge? And he's talking about some of the issues that are at stake that are very serious to the future of our country. And he goes into obviously much greater detail in his new book here called At the Brink. You mentioned about Obamacare and the premiums of an average person's health insurance. Those numbers, would you repeat those? And where do you get those from?
That's from the Obama administration. The minimum price for buying individual health insurance policy on these Obamacare exchanges is going to be $7,100
annually.
Right.
Okay.
And for a family of four, the minimum price is going to be a little bit over $20,000.
What are these? I don't want to get too down into the, the muck of this thing because I want people to keep listening to the show, but these exchanges. I mean, this just sounds to me like people are going to go, duh, Tim. That's what we've been talking about for 2 years now. The federal government is taking over health care? Is that what's going on here ultimately?
Right. Well, I mean, the federal government's going to tell you what exactly can be in your health insurance policy and what prices that can be charged for it.
Well, that's taken over.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They're going to replace the private insurance companies ultimately. Is that what's going to happen here?
Well, I think so, because I think the regulations are going to be going into effect after January. Within a few years, they're going to destroy private health insurance.
Well, aren't these private health insurance companies crying foul? Weren't they on board with Obamacare, some of them?
Some of them were, but see, basically what's happened is the Obama administration's promised them certain things. Some of them have been given contracts to go and handle the paperwork for some of the government systems that are there. And others basically realized that they were being threatened that some of the things would be even worse if they hadn't kind of knuckled under and kept to themselves about some of the concerns that they had. But you look over the statements that they've been making now since the election this last November, and now that the administration can't retaliate them or isn't going to bother because they're not facing another election now, I think they've been much more open about the situation. See, the thing is, when the federal government has huge regulatory power, people are often fearful in those regulated industries for coming out and criticizing the government because the government can really damage your firm in many other ways.
So they're ultimately now there's still. I mean, I know that we're on track with Obamacare, and he was reelected, but Paul Ryan, the congressman from Wisconsin, who proposed the Republican budget for 10 years, 10-year plan to balance the budget, he's continuing to try to repeal Obamacare.
Right. Well, I mean, he can try, and I think part of it is educational. He's just trying to show how much this is costing, how much of our deficits over the next few years.
Yeah, but doesn't President Obama go, guys, we had an election last November.
Right.
The American people
he'll do that. I guess, look, people are going to be talking about how do we cut spending. And I'll just give you a simple example. So we have to cut $44 billion. But, the president's claiming that there's going to be a complete disaster. Half of it has to come out of defense. we're spending about $10 billion a year right now in additional government spending for the Defense Department because of green energy programs there. And that really doesn't even count all the costs. It's just the energy costs. Some of the green fuels that they're using are actually causing additional wear and tear on engines, and they have to be replaced sooner, and additional repair costs. But ignoring that, just looking at the cost of fuel, that's a little bit over $10 billion. That's about half of the cuts that have to be made in defense could simply be taken care of by getting rid of the green energy stuff that's there. So, the president talks about the fact that he's not able to go and send aircraft carriers to crucial places, which he says hurt our national security. Well, there's an easy way to pay for it, and that is, he could just curtail some or all of this green energy program that he has for the Defense Department, and he'd have plenty of money to go on that.
So the Republicans and Obama administration, continue to be at odds on spending and taxation and all this stuff. I want to ask you this. You probably don't subscribe to my view here on this, John. It's kind of radical, and so my friends even run for me when I suggest it.
Okay.
But I think President Obama is intentionally trying to bankrupt the country. I see when his Treasury Secretary Geithner says we want all the control for the debt ceiling, we want unlimited debt ceiling, take it off the table. I mean, that's what he pushed for. The Congress didn't give it to him.
Right.
When you have a man who's racked up $6 trillion in 4 years with no sign of stopping the spending, that's a sign of a man who doesn't give a rip, okay? So somebody may say to me, well, Tim, that's ridiculous. He wouldn't intentionally be trying to bankrupt the country. And I would say to you, okay, you may not buy that sinister a view of President Obama, but the net effect is the same, even if he's acting out of stupidity.
Right. Look, I agree with you that, look, it's hard to know what's going on in somebody's mind, and I don't really think it's useful usually to try to speculate about what's going on in somebody's mind.
But the actions are the same. You end up in the same place.
We can judge it, and I think whether it's intentional or not, I think it's going to have that effect if it keeps on going on. Look, just look at the negotiations that they had over the sequester. The sequester was originally the president's idea. Republicans agreed to it if the president promised not to push for further tax increases with regard to that. Of course, he blamed the Republicans for the sequester and then pushed for tax increases. But, the interesting thing is the Republicans said, fine, we'll take this $44 billion cut. The president's counterproposal was to actually increase spending and taxes and increase the deficit. He was going to increase the deficit by $7 billion, but he was going to increase taxes by about $60 billion, increase spending by about $67 billion. So, I don't know what he was thinking. I guess he was thinking, well, if he asked for enough spending, even more than the cuts there, then maybe he would compromise down to something that didn't change spending. But when everybody agrees that we're having this huge budget deficit, you come forward with a proposal that actually increases it even more. That's your counteroffer. You're saying whether he's serious or not. I think it really gets to this notion about whether he is serious about cutting the deficit. And I don't think he is. Look at last year. A couple times, the Congressional Budget Office marked up his proposals and said that they were increasing the deficit by $1 trillion or more rather than cutting it.
We're talking with John Lott. He's the author of the brand new book from Regnery Publishing called At the Brink. Will Obama push us over the edge? John, we're